Welcome to Treasure Valley Podcast. I'm your host, Chuck. That background music that you hear right now is not our normal theme song. That's Wade Ronsse. He's a local drummer extraordinaire, percussionist, expert. Would you say that you're an expert?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, you can listen to that and maybe make your own judgment. Thanks for taking the time to come out and talk to us, Wade, about drums and music. I want to read a quote from your Facebook post that you had on your 31st birthday recently, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
You describe yourself as the kid that would sit in most of his classes in silent, helpless shame, feeling like a failure because focusing felt like an attempt to grip an infinitely frictionless object. You then went on to talk about how music was not that difficult for you compared to sitting into a classroom and doing the tasks that your teacher had set forth for you. So can you talk about when you learned you had ADHD and how music helped you cope with that?
Yeah. I got diagnosed probably, it's like first or second grade. It's always been really ambiguous just because I'm kind of from that generation that sometimes tended to dodge conversations on that kind of stuff. So it was there. Like I knew that it was going on and I knew that it existed. I knew that it framed a lot of the way that I interacted with things. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't present enough for me that I was like actually aware that a lot of what I was experiencing were literal textbook symptoms of ADHD.
Can you give us a couple of textbook symptoms out there just so people can understand?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm also, maybe not qualified to elaborate on these a ton, but what I have experienced a lot is common with like the inattentive subset of ADHD, which I think as of now there's even like a different name for it, but like dissociation, excessive daydreaming, where like the harder I try to focus on an object, my mind will move. A word I learned recently, like parenthetically. So like, if I'm staring at the soda water, I'm thinking like, oh, soda water, oh, mango. I haven't had a mango in a while. Oh, I saw a mango at Albertsons the other day. Oh man, last time I was at Albertsons, I saw this cute girl. Oh yeah, like when's the last time I dated a girl? I was like, oh. Then all of a sudden I'm thinking about something totally different when really I'm supposed to be paying attention to the board and learning about like algebra or something like that.
Well, that sounds like an adventure, but definitely can hinder your functioning in the classroom.
Yeah. And the difficulty with it for me was that it always stemmed from a place of attempted focus.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I was actively trying to daydream and like zoning off. It was like I'd stare at some, mentally focus on something, but then it would like morph gradually, like frog in the pot of water, to where all of a sudden I'd like snap out of it. Teacher would be like, Wade.
Are you with me?
Yeah, are you with me? Or I'd be like sitting there tapping, and just zoned out. So a lot of that. Standard, just the frontal lobe executive functioning stuff too. So just like timekeeping, procrastination, object impermanence, all of that kind of stuff.
So did that carry through into middle school and high school?
In a lot of ways.
Were you the kid with the locker where you'd open it up and like a lot of stuff would just come falling out or crumpled papers everywhere?
Oh, I have always had, yeah, in a big way. My car, like, I have spots that are extremely clean.
Okay.
Which is kind of funny, but then it's like I take out when I like the things that I don't focus on, like my car or my desk, my like high school, or like when did we have desks? Was that elementary school?
Oh yeah,
where like the desk with the cubby.
Your own thing.
Oh, mine was like the first circle of hell. It's just like.
Let's take out the assignment from yesterday. You're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It's like crumpled way in the back, or my backpacks. Yeah, it was always a disaster.
So how was music different for you then?
I think that it was a skill that I was able to pursue at my own pace. I think was a lot of it, is that like, albeit I was in band class, but I had a little bit of a head start because I played piano beforehand. And then dropping into 6th grade, like I never really went home and practiced the stuff that I was supposed to. Sorry, Mr. Krieger and
Confessions
Erickson. Yeah, I
to a
think
band director.
I mean, they were. You can't bullshit a band director. Like
Well, yeah,
they know
they know
when you're not practicing. But
you
like
can't cram instrument practice in. That
exactly.
doesn't work like fax.
Yeah. But like I was playing a lot, and I was able to study things at my own pace and kind of learn in a way that as I've gotten older, I've realized like I personally can learn really well, which is through like specific hyper focus on a specific attribute of a skill, and so it'd be like, oh, I like went a mile deep into classic rock drumming, and
Okay.
like choosing one thing, and rather than kind of developing a network of skills that I'm constantly improving, I would like go hard on a thing
Okay.
and learn that and learn all the adjacent skills.
So you're talking about doing like a whole bunch of deep dives,
Yeah.
on, and maybe even taking those thoughts that you had where you would be focused on your mango soda and then think about mangoes and thinking about Albertsons, but instead of doing that, make it music specific and then apply those random thoughts to stick technique or percussive technique.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty
A
useful.
lot of contemplation and like persistence. I've never really been good. In fact, like my worst experiences with music were in college when it was like, requirements to learn a lot of repertoire at a time where I was kind of expanding musically in more of a philosophic sense,
Okay.
because that was just the thing I was doing at that point in time. And kind of is what I've always done is like I think about music more than I play it. Like to me, I derive more improvement on my instrument from changing an approach than from, learning a new concept or something like that.
Okay.
Or not a new concept, but a new like rudiment or a new riff or a new like sick fill.
Okay, so you're talking about taking a different idea and then implementing it in something that you play rather than a specific execution. I'm trying to think in terms of
or
of
even just
guitar.
like changing my angle of approach on things.
Okay.
Is just like realizing I don't know, you can change one little piece of your approach and it can affect your whole drumming
Okay.
or your whole artistry, just like approaching the drums from I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example. We might have to come back to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I actually just thought of a quote from Victor Wooten. He's one of my favorite bass players to watch, and now that there's the thing called YouTube, he has amazing stuff that he talks about. And one of the things on like Bass Day '98 DVD that I, if it were a VHS, I would have played it off like it would have broken in the machine. He talks about he likes to give his guitar or his bass guitar to somebody that has no idea what it is. And he talks about giving it to the karate guy that did like a palm slap against the fretboard, and it helped him implement that into his bass playing technique. Because almost like what you were saying before, if you deep dive into something so specific, I don't think it matters what it is. Sometimes you lose the forest through the trees, and so it's probably a good thing to swim back up for some air. Make sure that you're on the right path, or you're always on the right path. I feel like when it comes to like mastery of whatever it is, but then to deep dive back into another area, and try to branch those two. Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah, and I don't know if it's
So you learned a lot. You learned a lot from your karate teacher in drums. That's what I meant exactly.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I really think that there's a lot of skill to be derived, in my field. I guess I can't really speak of other fields of expertise, but in my field, by studying and learning the approaches of other like disciplines of like any other kinds of disciplines, whether or not it's the sciences or martial arts or other disciplines of art, even, and just like understanding the way that they think about things. Because again, it can just be a slight change of trajectory or a slight change of approach on it, at looking at something from a slightly different angle. And it can make you rethink your whole instrument.
Yeah, those aha moments.
Yeah.
I actually he was just on the podcast. I have a buddy, Tyler Carson, who's a violinist, and he was talking about how he started to take Tai Chi because violin is incredibly hard on your body as far as like, and I suppose you might have to worry about this as you continue on drums. You have to worry about your technique, and he's in a weird position, and so he started to take Tai Chi to be more aware of his movements so that he's not fighting through like whatever tension he's having while holding his instrument with his chin on his neck.
Interesting.
And moving his elbow in a strange way constantly,
Learning.
extremely rapidly.
That's cool.
So for him, he like started to apply that, and he said it opened up a lot in his violin that he had never experienced before. And part of it was due to necessity.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, you can't. When you're 20, you can do a lot of different things that aren't going to hurt you the next day, versus 30, versus 40, versus 50, and so on.
Yeah. And so why not? I feel like that's going to set him up to, like kind of give him that wisdom. I feel like maybe that's where some of that wisdom of like doing something long enough that you get that like weird stuff that you can't just practice. And it comes from like aging, maybe not aging, but like doing your discipline long enough that you start seeing how something like Tai Chi can be applied to it. Or, like for me, I like watching surf videos.
Okay.
Being like, oh crap, like drums are kind of like surf videos and yoga videos, and being like, oh, drums are like way more of a flow state than like, for me at least, or they can be. I guess it's not like, I'm not going to absolutely say that. Only Nick and Wend always says only Sith deal in absolutes. But,
Careful.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I was looking at it and I was like, oh, for me, drums are more of a flow state activity than like this like brain mechanical thinking about music kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like, gradually flowing through that. And it was like, as soon as I thought about it like that, I was reframing some of my practices to be like, okay, like, that video that you pulled up, is something that I've been working on since I kind of came to those realizations. I'm going to lower my microphone a little bit.
Yeah, that's good.
Where I will sit down and just try and play. Just like, don't stop playing. Or it's like a dude surfing a wave. Like, he's not going to surf it for like 15 feet and be like, oh man, I don't know any surf lingo. Like, I missed that ripple, like dives off and catches the next wave. Like, no, you ride it into shore and then you go and catch another wave.
And do better the next time.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Exactly.
That's a good way to think of improvisation, I would imagine. I wanted to talk to you about like your drumming, because I imagine you spend, at least based on the post that you put online, I imagine you spend an enormous amount of time practicing. Is that true? And are you close to your 10,000 hours, do you think? Like Malcolm Gladwell talks about?
I would imagine I'm around my 10,000 hours. But I've been having this conversation with a lot of people, because kind of along with what we're talking about, like music practice can exist in different forms.
Yes.
Like I'm in a Wend, like every person in that band has a completely different set of musical experience and things that they've practiced. And like, there was this sort of like weird period of, like imposter syndrome for like each of us, where it's like we all felt equally incapable because everybody had skills that nobody had.
Okay.
And so it really pointed to me that the dispersion of the 10,000 hour principle, which, I mean, albeit like that principle, it's much more complex, than I'm describing it right now. But you could disperse hours into so many different things that you wouldn't expect to be. I'm just putting my hand right in front of the camera. That you wouldn't expect to be normal drum practice. Like to me, like again, like watching surf videos or like watching music videos, but like to me, practice has always been like, as long as I'm truly opening up my mind to creativity or to just like education, like approaching everything like a student, I guess it has felt like practice. As far as like sitting down and consciously like practicing, like sitting down with like, you have syncopation over there, you know, like sitting down and doing that, shockingly little.
Okay.
I grind the pad a lot. I love technique. And I don't think I'll ever be satisfied with my technique, and I love contemplating it. And so I spend a lot of time thinking about the mechanics of the body and stuff. But like also like, I don't know, man, I'm like out of shape and like achy, and I can only sit at a drum kit for like 2 hours,
Oh, okay.
if that. So like, I don't know. I get seat time every day, but I'm
Right
not
on.
like, I don't. You'll run into a lot of drummers who practice hard.
Hmm.
Like Michael Mitchell, that drums for Jeff Crosby,
Okay.
who's like local absolute monster drummer. Like I know for a fact that he practices, especially when he's at home. It's like shocking how efficient and how like diligent he is with his
Hmm.
practice routine. Like there are guys out there that do that. I'm not one of them. And it reflects in my technique. Like
Okay.
as someone who spends a lot of time looking at my own videos and shooting videos to look at my own technique, it does come across, but I don't know. I don't put that much time into like traditional practicing.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, I think like traditional, the 10,000 hours rule is kind of interesting too, because I read a book about from the author now whose name escapes me. I probably should have written that down. The book's called Peak, and he talks about how mastery is just something that from the outside looking in, if you've spent 10,000 hours on something, usually you're much better at the average person in a way that they can't grasp.
Hmm.
And then outside of that, the majority of people that continue to do stuff continue to improve. And there's also this phenomenon of like intentional practice because there are people that do a bad job or do a decent job at what they do and then continue to stay at that level without like pushing themselves past a certain threshold.
Yeah.
Which as a fellow musician, when I play guitar, I know the difference between grabbing my guitar, getting passing some time, and just using it as a way to relax, and not that that's invaluable to me, because it still keeps things sharp, and I'll notice like little things that maybe I can adjust, but it also helps me get in that flow state versus like sitting down and like trying to figure out like a new piece of music that I cannot play.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's two totally different things in my mind, and that's
Yeah.
where that push comes from.
Yeah.
Is there something that you're pushing yourself on right now in relation to drums?
Lately, uh,
Obviously,
I
the improv
yeah.
stuff.
I mean, I think that's something that I've been aware of, that I've been structuring my practices around a little bit. But I think so much of my practice has just been like more effort has been put into systematically making time to practice.
Yeah.
Because I think that like, I always tell my students that like the hardest part of learning any skill isn't the like practices themselves, it's making the time to do the thing, like
Mhm.
actually getting to the seat
Yeah.
and practicing the thing. And so like,
Putting your shoes on to run.
yeah,
Put your
exactly.
shoes
Like
on, you're gonna run.
driving your ass to the gym or whatever it is,
Yeah.
And so like that's been my biggest struggle, is like looking at a day and being like, oh, okay, like I'm gonna get home at 6 tonight and I'm gonna be tired, and
Mhm.
like that's my time to practice, And so like doing like I just got to get seat time. Like I can just sit down, and if I can just do that, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
And so it's been really focused around that.
Mhm.
I have been working on playing in terms of like actual intent, working on really low volume,
Okay.
like working on like with drums. You think a lot of times like dynamically, like in terms of how loud you are, based off of stick height.
Okay.
So like if I'm playing with a pair of sticks and like the tip of the stick is going an inch off, that's like pianissimo or piano. And so I've
Yeah.
been working on playing that quiet, because it requires a whole different like functionality of the muscle systems and stuff that I find then makes it so that I can play really loud if I want.
Huh.
It just gives me a lot of control. So I've been working on like playing quietly and controlled and really unlocking that dynamic level, because it's
Interesting.
surprisingly hard.
That's that actually. So Adam Chavarria, was a local musician, but is in Austin right now. But still bombs around in Boise every once in a while. He gave me the pointer because I was asking him how to sing, because I couldn't sing for anything like a few years ago. I had no control. Like you think that you know where your voice is going. And he sent me like some video tips that he goes back to all the time, like these people that do YouTube videos. And one of them was this guy. He's like sustain the note. Like he was like barely holding this sound, and it was the hardest thing I've ever tried to do, is like make a note really quietly, but then I realized that, like, oh, okay, if I can control this, if I can hold one note for a long time really quietly, because you like run out of breath.
Yeah.
It's like really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, that quietness is super important. Being able to control that dynamic range, which I don't know that people in the general population appreciate that aspect of music, is like that dynamic range is so incredibly impactful, not just at like a micro level when it comes to the musician, um, but also in a band composition type situation. When that happens unexpectedly, as far as like however many instruments there are playing, like going down to one, all of a sudden your attention is just like, oh, that's where I need to be.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, especially when you're catching a band, like, and they've been intense and loud the whole time, and then it's just like
Silence.
silence, but like one of my favorite things is just like the singer,
Yeah.
singing like a verse by themselves and like being able to hear like the like vocal fry or like
Hmm.
whatever, and like those little characteristics. I don't know. I love that. Bands that actually stop playing sometimes.
Yes.
Which is hard. I mean, it's like I'm projecting there because I am one of those dudes that will start playing and not shut up. But
Well, so if that drum solo, did you share that on social media? I know that you shared it on Facebook, but
yeah,
on
I've
your other
I've bounced that
socials.
around. Yeah,
So I thought that was really interesting, that I played obviously like the segment where you were really rocking it, but I don't necessarily think that was the most interesting thing for me to watch, because you did start to play with the dynamics as time went on, which with percussion, I think when you think of the like quote unquote drum solo, you're always looking for more limbs flailing around more quickly
yeah.
to keep, so it sounds like a one man drum circle, which is incredibly impressive. But at the same time, that dynamic range in the drums and hitting those beats in certain measures is very interesting as well. So you're working on your drum improvisation, I would imagine, so that you can throw some drum solos out there every once in a while. How does that practice, and then those different techniques fit into like learning how to throw them in while you're improvising? Are you taking
Yeah.
stuff are you building like a vocabulary of different phrases that you can chuck out there? Are you feeling it out mostly, or
It's
what does
it's
that process
honestly
look like?
like the drum soloing thing for me. And the more I am getting closer to recontextualizing solo. I've never really enjoyed. I started off really enjoying like John Bonham and Ginger Baker and Mitch Mitchell, like the famous,
Mhm.
those famous drum solos, and then like, got into the jazz solos and stuff, and then like completely lost interest. And so I don't really know if my intent, like is to do that in front of people. Like to me, it's almost like my equivalent of like, like the Artist Way book, like the
No.
morning pages concept, where it's just like, so the Artist Way is this like self-help creativity book, and like one of her big things is morning pages, where you sit down and you stream of conscious write 3 pages.
Oh.
I think front and back. I'm not entirely sure. I told myself I was going to do it, and then I didn't instead.
Mhm.
But to me, the drum solos kind of function more in that, where I'm soloing to think
Okay.
and to like hear, because you start doing the way that she talks about it in the book, and the way that a lot of people who journal, it's like you do it to see what your tendencies are, to see what your like common syntax is, to like
Yeah.
kind of just get a snapshot of what you're like. And so to me, a lot of my like drum soloing is to like unlock the conversational side of that. That was why I posted that, was because that felt like when I'm playing in a room by myself and just expressing myself, like it was a flow. It felt like very
Yeah.
story like to me, at least. And that is what I've always used it for, is like this sort of exploratory integration of the practice room into my playing as I learn the new words,
Yeah.
or whatever. Understanding what I sound like on the drums and what I can get away with, so that when I'm playing live, I intuitively speaking, kind of know what I can drop into the music without it tanking, because there is a certain degree of responsibility thrown on the drummer to not have the floor drop out on the rhythm.
Yeah, it's really important because if the drummer starts screwing up, things fall apart really quickly for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a joke that I made to one of my friends about like guitar solo, like if I'd really get into it sometimes and then I'd just hit a wrong note and it was clearly wrong. Like if you go back to it again, like you did it on purpose, then all of a sudden you're okay.
Yeah.
But is there an equivalent to that for a drummer? Or is
Yeah,
it,
totally.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, Dave King, who actually has a really zany YouTube channel called Irrational Funk. He's a really good jazz drummer, but like I would almost describe his style as ugly,
Okay.
but like intentionally, like he'll like smash a thing weirdly and then imitate it, and like do weird little things that like integrate slop into it. And like, in a creative situation, I mean, one of the best piece of advices I ever got for session work, for cutting, doing takes to play on people's records, was like, if you make a mistake, like don't drop the take, just repeat it the next measure. And like repetition, like humans just are like, we're just pattern seeking. That's all. So
we
like,
eat it up.
yeah, exactly.
So
like,
if it happens again, it wasn't a mistake.
yeah, I mean, dude, like one of the dopest indie rock records, I mean, I think it was top 40 on the indie charts for a long time, was Lonerism by Tame Impala.
Yeah.
And like the opening, I think it's the opening. No, it's not the opening track. It was one of the singles on it. I forget the one. But he's like doing these sprawling, Kevin Parker's doing these sprawling tom fills and is like clicking the rim.
Yeah.
And I swear, because I don't know, that's not really something that someone would intentionally do. I swear that he clicked that rim and then in his mind was like, I'm going to click it the next time too and just keep this take because it's good.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's dope. Like that kind of stuff just works.
Yeah, as long as you have enough skill to be able to go back to where you knew that you messed up and incorporate the mistake into what you're doing on the fly is pretty helpful. Yeah, that Tame Impala is great. I just remembered a story of when I was driving around with someone and they thought my CD was skipping. And I can't remember the name of the album now. I'm terrible with album names and song names. I'm absolutely horrendous at them because I've always
I know
CDs.
I know the song you're talking about.
I always put the CDs into my CD player, like initially when I had a CD player or a tape that I recorded off of the radio, and then just like let stuff play nonstop and never looked at the booklet or anything like that. But yeah, he has a song where it skips. And then you're like, "What the heck is going on here?" And it's grating enough because it sounds like a CD skipping, but he incorporates it right back into the song, and I'm like, "That's cool." I wonder if something weird happened there. That one obviously had to have been planned out, but man, we went way off the rails.
That's cool though.
On my totally. Do you have tips for people that want to learn how to play the drums that haven't picked it up? I always think about non-traditional students. Because for me, I love to learn new things, and I do it to prove that I'm never going to get old, but it's definitely overwhelming. And the drums in particular is pretty difficult, I think.
Yeah,
because like piano, you can sit down and you can kind of like smash the notes and they're in front of you. And like, it's not going to be beautiful, but within a while you can kind of get something that sounds like hot cross buns, like out of the keys. But drums, you don't have,
there's not like a systematized way of learning them, really. I mean, like they're starting to be, but piano's old.
Yeah.
And like, well, it's funny because drums are really old too. They're like super old, but like the drum kit, is like a relatively new instrument, and so like the standardization of practice is still finding its footing, and especially in a modern context. I mean, it's extremely daunting to people. And I think that I run into that more often than not, like students that don't even know what it looks like to learn the drums because it's such a massive scope of things.
Yeah.
My suggestion for people is to find an entry point. So just like use YouTube or Google and just Google the drums and just go until something catches your eye, and then like watch YouTube videos, like literally just keyword drums and like watch videos and go pages and pages in and go down a YouTube rabbit hole and find some aspect of it that you like, and then use that as your entry point to get into it. And you can, I mean, most people nowadays, unless you're of a demographic that it doesn't really interact with computers, most of us know how to like chase a internet rabbit hole.
Yes.
And so like, I think that is a really good way to be self-taught at it. It still is beneficial to then, like, once you hit some dead ends, reach out to a drum teacher.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm at my worst when I'm trying to systematically like teach a student, like take them through the like traditional track of drums, because I don't have context in that.
Yeah.
That was what I was bad at.
Okay. Yeah.
And so taking people through, like, oh, what's your entry point? Oh, it's drum history. Oh, okay, cool. I can like teach you how, various like clave patterns morphed into jazz, morphed into rock and roll, and I can teach you a handful of grooves that you can pull from, or I can teach you about like the famous drummers, or I can, through that history, teach you the prominent drums of that era and teach you how they sounded and the prominent grooves for you, and so it's like if you can find your entry point, the thing that you're into, then expand from there, because drums are so big that like they can really be whatever you want. Sure,
Yeah.
if you're doing the like 6th grade through college level like scholastic track, there are going to be things that you're going to get graded on. And so there is a benefit to getting a teacher that's able to help you achieve those things, which, not saying I'm like bad at that, but like it's more standardized.
Yeah.
So
that thought process where you go down those rabbit holes, that has helped you have a pretty large base of understanding with not just the instrument of the drums, but a lot of the other aspects, the human societal history around them. Is that what you're kind of describing right now?
Yeah. And I mean, that was just an example.
Yeah.
I mean, your entry point could be, I want to learn how to play a rock beat because my friend wants to jam with me, and so I can teach you a rock beat and then teach you the infinite complexity that can come from literally just like making minor adjustments to the rock beat.
Right on.
I mean, Phil Rudd from AC/DC, like, played 4 on the floor and killed it.
There you go. Do you have any factoids? Not to put you on, I'm putting you on the spot, I guess. Do you have any interesting factoids that you've learned recently about drums?
Drums?
That you like to share?
Oh, I mean, I've been going really, really deep on like time in and of itself.
Right on.
It seemed weird to me to like not get just like an understanding of like timekeeping and all that kind of stuff.
I was just thinking of like Albert Einstein and like maybe adjustments you need to make, like if you were in outer space traveling at a certain amount of speed. So close to the speed of light, like what a drums would sound like. No,
I mean, there like is a weird that shit can get really weird. I just read this like brief history of timekeeping, and it got over my head so fast. It's like, oh man.
I did read something about that. It was a while ago. Standardized timekeeping became really important when the trains were developed, because like people could then travel between towns, and they needed to be able to like figure out what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Is that the same thing that you read?
Yeah, and I mean, like the train like corporations or whatever they were called then, like the barons, I guess, like they lobbied, like they're the ones that lobbied to like the United States and like the timekeeping conferences to like not only set up standard time, but like to kind of establish how it is today. Like a lot of our like time zone, those like vertical lines are based off of prominent rail towns in the United States.
Yeah,
like, even down to like the Greenwich clock. I'm just so like into like, so you asked me about ADHD, like my 10 years, my like info dump. Yeah. So like, I've been getting into that kind of stuff because I think it's just interesting to know. But the tie between what is called polyrhythms and then intervals, I found this out through an Adam Neely video that blew my mind. Like polyrhythms are like playing basically 2 different rates at once. So like right now I'm doing like both right, left, right, both right, left, right, both right, left, right, both. But each hand is playing a constant rate. So if I'm like that's triplets, and then my left hand is playing like 3 basically for every 3 I'm playing 2 on
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
If you like were to take that recording and speed it up incredibly fast, like that would be a major third interval or something like that. Like that is like the
Oh.
intervallic hertz of like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
just hurt my head to think about. So
Yeah, yeah.
people that aren't are
I'll send you the Adam Neely video and you can
okay.
just like drop it in there. 'Cause
So yeah,
it
people.
like, yeah, I like that scene where Neo like pukes at the beginning of the Matrix. That's
Yeah.
like what I felt like. I was like, oh God, what?
Okay. So just a quick baseline. I'll try to explain
Yeah,
that
you might be able
quickly.
to explain it
So
better.
basically musical information. I think it's like 440 hertz is concert A.
Yeah.
Right. And so for people that don't know the basics about music theory, an octave above that would be 880 hertz. So double the octave, you get the same note. Your ear hears it as the exact same note for whatever reason. If it's twice the frequency, the number of sound waves moving through the air.
Yeah.
So there's
number of
440
pulses.
hertz per 440 sound waves per second is concert A, I believe.
Yeah.
And then double that is an octave above that, and then all the notes are metered in those ratios. And so what you're saying is if you're putting like 368 over 44, essentially, was that what that
Something
was?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, 6, and then there that's a major third. Is it
So,
just,
yeah, it might
or
be
major
it
fifth?
might be a fifth or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't actually know the specifics of it.
Which I'm
but-
not that good with notes. I'd have to A, B, C, D, E, which would be like an E or something.
Yeah, depending on what your root note is.
Yeah.
If you were playing in the key of C, major third
Wild.
would be C, E. If it was a fifth, it'd be C, G. Which, like, it makes sense when you think about it because, like, all that hertz is just like a different, like rate. Like beats per minute is just like literally pulses per minute, and hertz is just pulses per second. So
Yeah.
it's just like different levels of granularity of rate of pulse.
Too.
So you're just
totally makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it's just a fraction. Yeah, that we're not used to hearing it in that term because we actually hear it's at such a low frequency. We don't hear it as musical information.
Yeah.
Dang, that's cool. Oh, it makes total sense. I'm gonna end with one last question here. That's gonna bring it more general because
Cool.
I wanted to hit on this one.
Yeah.
How does progress with your drumming coincide with overall personal development for you?
Yeah, I'm curious if it like actually does drive it or not. I think that really learning how to practice in an intentional sense, doing the thing that I said that I don't do very much, which is just like the repetition style where I like take a single stroke roll, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, and get as many repetitions of it as I can over a period of time. And within that, I focus on the accuracy of each note and think about the way that my hands are moving. And I'm basically taking my mind and moving my focus to different points in space. Either I'm looking at where the beads of the stick are on the drum or my wrists or my relaxation and learning how to move my brain around has really opened up a lot of mindfulness for me in a way that like as I started like in an effort to grapple, kind of swinging it back to the beginning with my ADHD, as I began to grapple with that and learned that like, oh yeah, like the like, and I'm not pushing people to do this or not, but for me, like looking into meditation and mindfulness stuff was like, oh, okay. So like a lot of these concepts are this same sort of movement of my mind. And so music has driven a lot of that, the actual practicing of it. Being in bands, I mean, is wildly complex.
Yeah.
That's a complex relationship right there. Learning how to make space for other people's creativity.
Yeah.
Is like Serge Tankian, I don't know if that's how you say his last name, from System of a Down.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked him, why System of a Down doesn't do anything, and he's like, well, it's because it's like you and your friends are all trying to paint a painting at the same time, and so like it's taught me a lot about taking a step back and having more faith in people.
Yeah.
And more faith in seeing what their idea will look like if you just kind of shut up for a second and let them chase it without you trying to grab the steering wheel.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's taught me a lot about that. It's taught me different levels of just like observation and thinking about myself, just how much I focus with that video, I had a hard time with it at first because I was like over analyzing my playing rather than just like letting it be what it wanted to be.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. Just as you can learn lessons from life towards drumming, it can go the other way.
Right on.
It's not just a one-way relationship.
This is why artists are usually pretty chill. It's all those sociological things that we learn how to do to interact with people that help us out in everyday life, and a lot of it's probably unintentional.
Yeah.
Or those objections come in the way because you can't just sit at a cubicle and ignore everybody.
Yeah. Although
Unfortunately,
I know a lot of Zen people that are in the cubicle life too. But yeah, I definitely.
It's not exclusive, I guess.
It's not exclusive, but it definitely.
No absolutes.
It comes from it comes from a place of intention for sure, But yeah, no, I agree.
Right.
It's
well,
nice
thanks.
You think I'm chill.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us today, Wade.
Yeah.
If Wade plays for this episode is going to be airing in October, you are going to be releasing an album with Wend, hopefully soon. Are we allowed to announce that?
Oh, it'll just be coming out next year.
Okay.
I think someone asked Riley about it, and she was like, "Yeah, we'd love to release it."
Sweet.
Yeah.
So definitely follow Wend on the social medias and
Yep.
follow Wade on the social medias, and he gives tips on drums periodically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I'm available for drum lessons and whatever format works best for you. I love teaching, and I like earning my keep doing it. So,
Right on.
Yeah.
So reach out to him. He can give you some drum lessons that'll suit you directly, rather than just syncopation for the modern drummer. Not that that's a bad thing.
It's a killer book.
It's a great book. All right. Well, this has been a Lower Gentry Studios production. That is Treasure Valley Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.